The administration headquarters of Manchester is Town Hall and Albert Square. And what you'll also find in Manchester is a destination for many football fans, and that is the National Football Museum. Manchester is the third most visited city in the UK and notable for science, music, and of course probably one of the most global products, and that's football. A very good morning to you as our ABSA Red bus has made its way outside of that structure. That is the National Football Museum. Now, if you speak about football, of course, they're the two globally known clubs, and Old Trafford and Manchester City are just 15 minutes from one another. It's good to have you in our company as we bring you this live broadcast from the ABSA Red bus, a partner of Barclays. Now, between the two EPL clubs who have Manchester in their name, there are 24 English Premier League titles, 7 international titles, and yes, United fans, I know you're all saying that's mainly because of us. Yes, we know. But according to the people here in Manchester, they say real Mancunians actually support City. And it is City's stadium, the Etihad, that is going to be hosting just one Rugby World Cup match, and that is England going up against Uruguay on the 10th of October. And it really was something that the local organising committee undertook to take rugby, to grow the footprint of rugby in real football towns and cities, because of course football is their national sport, but they certainly want to grow the game of rugby where it also is very, very popular. Let's start this Rugby World Cup update by of course bringing you up to speed with what's happening at the tournament. The Yokohama Stadium replaces the National Stadium. Big news, because World Rugby have now confirmed that Japan will in fact host the 2019 Rugby World Cup. They were completely taken off guard in July when Japan announced that the 80,000-seater National Stadium in Tokyo would be brought to the ground, so they would no longer be able to make that the centerpiece of that 2019 Rugby World Cup. But they've now replaced it, so World Rugby have given them the go-ahead for the very first Rugby World Cup in Asia. This is news from the host camp. England coach Stuart Lancaster has called up veteran Nick Easter. He needs him to replace injured number 8 Billy Vunipola, who has been ruled out of the Rugby World Cup with a knee injury. Easter will be the oldest player in the England squad at 37 years old as they try to bounce back from that 28-25 defeat to the Welsh. That is the National Football Stadium where our ABSA Red bus is parked outside. It's 6 floors of 140,000 pieces of football memorabilia. It is a real treat to actually go inside and actually visit, and we're going to be bringing you up to speed with our experience that happened yesterday. But first, what can you expect from the Rugby World Cup? Well, there's a match that you can watch live on SABC 2 from 5 o'clock this evening, and that'll be where fellow African contenders Namibia will also be going up in Pool C against Tonga. So let's take a look at the fixtures that we can look forward to this coming weekend. Okay, we'll have to bring you those fixtures in a little while, but that's what you can look forward to tonight. At 5 o'clock tonight, it's Namibia up against Tonga. Let's check in with Simon Burke, our camp correspondent, to find out what the latest is from the Springbok camp as they try to regroup after the announcement of the international retirement of captain Jean de Villiers, who returns back home to Cape Town later today.
Well, it's not often that we're privy to what happens in the Springbok camp after a match, but according to Skalkberger, on Saturday night, it was almost like a summit of South African sport as Jean de Villiers broke the news to everyone that his World Cup and indeed his South African rugby career was over.
So, it was an emotional day Saturday. I won't disclose for what hours I sat and drank beer with him Saturday night. So for him, it's obviously now. I'm not too sure that he's sure what the next chapter is. Obviously, he's done with the box, and he'll probably look to finish his career on a high. And obviously, since his knee injury, he's had some bad luck. Just getting some game time under the belt. So safe travels for him. I think he might be spending some more time with us later in the competition. And Dani was obviously inducted in the Hall of Fame, so big congratulations to him. And then obviously Ernie, again, he keeps us busy on Sunday nights whenever he's in contention, in whatever tournament he's playing. So obviously lovely to have guys like that, and they're so passionate about the Springboks. And I think sometimes when you talk to them, you realise how much it means, not only to all South Africans back home, but guys who are based abroad. And obviously to see Kriel met Dani Gerber for the first time. And so it's quite nice to get that balance, and it's nice to have them supporting us.
But it's a new week. It's week 3 of the World Cup for the Springboks. They're in Newcastle, and Schalk Burger is very excited to be playing in this city against Scotland.
Obviously playing Scotland for the first time, I think Afrikaans is not going to be that handy with the very Scottish surname of Visser and Nel and Strauss. So looking forward to it. Obviously we played against these guys lots when they were playing for the respective units back home. So great challenge. They're playing a nice brand of rugby. Obviously, as Mike mentioned earlier, there's 2 teams. I think that the last 2 performance was good. So what we've heard from St James's Park is that it's an unbelievable stadium, great theatre, and hopefully we can produce the goods on the weekend.
And the team seems to be holding up just fine. I'm Simon Burke, bringing you the latest from the Springbok camp.
Thank you very much to Simon Burke as we continue this live broadcast from our ABSA Red Bus. ABSA, a member of Barclays. Well, we are in Manchester, and their town hall is one of their administrative headquarters along with Albert Square. Now, Manchester Town Hall is a Grade 1 listed building, which means that it has historical significance, which is protected heritage. And our fellow colleague Mac Messina went to find out a little bit more about this very interesting building. The building of Manchester Town Hall was undertaken because the neoclassical Town Hall in King Street had become too small to house the expanding business of the corporation. A competition was held and won by Alfred Waterhouse, mainly for his ingenious planning. The site was an irregular triangle on which had to be fitted a large hall, a suite of reception rooms and living quarters for the Lord Mayor, as well as offices for all the corporation departments and a chamber for council meetings. Waterhouse successfully combined the ceremonial and workday requirements. The town hall was designed in the 19th century Gothic style, but it was, in Waterhouse's words, a building essentially of the 19th century. The structure comprises 14 million bricks encased with Spinkwell stone. Welcome back. That's a glorious shot of the sun rising over Manchester and our ABSA Red Bus. There you can see it's all kitted out in South African and Springbok flags, and it really is a hit whenever it rolls into any of the towns, of which we've now visited a total of 4. So we're really racking up the kilometers on the old Route Master, and people loving our ABSA Red Bus. So where we parked this morning, we're parked outside of the National Football Museum, and inside there not only do they have 140,000 pieces of football memorabilia, which actually at only one time they can put out 2,500. So that just shows you how big maybe their storage warehouses are. But it also just highlights the kind of importance that football has here in England. And England were also the very first nation to have rules for the game written down. It's something that I mentioned last night when I chatted to my colleague Thomas Mlambo, when I asked the Deputy Director of the National Football Museum, you guys have got the origins of rugby, the first written down rules of rugby, and now also football. He goes, well, we're English and we like rules. But it's not only that original rule book that you'll find of Football Association inside that museum, which is so interesting, but they also have the shirt that Diego Maradona wore when he performed the Hand of God. And they've also got that 1966 World Cup winning football on display. That's not all. It's not only about the heritage, but there's also some interactive stuff. Take a look.
We try and cover the sort of world's favourite sport from as many angles as we can, and that's not difficult because football connects so well to so many subjects. We go back into the early history of the game with the Museum of Association Football, so right back to 1863 when here in England the rules were set for the game that we all now play, right through to sort of things that happened in the last few years, and we always try and take an international take on that as well.
You guys have also got a Hall of Fame, and I understand some memorabilia that have belonged to people from our continent, from Africa.
Yes, absolutely. There are players who certainly their families of African origin who've broken into world football. Some of them who've played in this country and therefore are recognised in our Hall of Fame. The likes of Patrick Vieira's family, of course, are from Senegal originally. But as well, there are stories of black players, African players that played in English football. We have a display currently about Albert Johansson, who is from South Africa, was the very first black player to play in an FA Cup final. You can only have a few thousand things on display, so there's great opportunities, constantly be changing things. We're doing computer gaming, sort of getting right up to date with the modern game and everybody's sort of obsessions and engagement with football from all points of view. We were expecting to get sort of 350,000 visitors a year here because we're in the centre of Manchester. Manchester is, known all over the world for football, but we've exceeded that expectation. We're getting over 450,000 visitors a year. People come here for all sorts of reasons when they visit Manchester. We're really sort of a fantastic new destination here, which I think is a must-see whenever you come to the city.
To come here to this museum and experience and understand different aspects of football. I know you're a director, but when you were putting everything together, were you quite surprised at just how vast the history of the game is? Absolutely,
because you're looking at stories at every level of the game. We try and reflect on the Premier League, of course, now, the sort of top level of international football, but also stories relating to sort of football in the playground, jumpers for goalposts, that people's memories of summers sort of playing football as a kid. It really can get into every aspect of life, and people love to hold a trophy. It's sort of absolutely at the centre of playing football, the dream of holding up a Premier League trophy or an FA Cup.
Because you are not allowed to touch the trophy with your bare hand if you haven't fought on the field to actually deserve to touch it with your bare hands. I will just say that you got 3 opportunities at scoring penalties. I scored 2 out of those 3. They just happened to show you the one which I didn't score and which the goalie saved. We are, of course, outside of the National Football Museum, bringing this broadcast to you live in Manchester. We're going to be in the city tomorrow morning when we bring you another Rugby World Cup update from our ABSA Red Bus. ABSA, a member of Barclays. It's great to have been in your company for this morning. We do look forward to bringing you the latest from the Rugby World Cup, as well as what some of the host cities and towns are doing for the quadrennial event. For now, though, it's back to Ayanda with your headline news.
Oh, Vaylen, don't worry, you'll always be a champion in our eyes. All right, let's take a look at